Welcome to the Voices of Legacy, where you're writing your legacy every day that you live. Today, I have a special treat for you because I call him friend, but a living legend once again here on the Voices of Legacy, none other than Pastor Greg Young, host of Chosen Generation Radio for many years in syndication across these United States, and formerly the host of A Dose of the Ghost. We're going to talk about that as well as many, many other things, India ministry, his miraculous recovery today on the Voices of Legacy. Good morning, Pastor Greg, or afternoon, or whenever you're
Good
listening.
morning, Carl. It's great to be with you, Pastor Carl. Thanks for having me on Voices of Legacy. This is exciting.
Yes, it is. It very much is. I'm thankful to get an opportunity to allow you to share your story here on WGT Public Media. But nevertheless, tell us more about you.
Sure, absolutely. Well, let's see. Where should I begin? I've been married now for going on 39 years. I'm the father of five, all grown. Our youngest is 18. He is a special needs child. We have three that are married, and we have four grandchildren and a fifth grandchild on the way. And I was involved in a catastrophic accident where I died four times,
Wow.
came back from death four times. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. I've done business nationally and internationally, and I've also done radio and broadcast on a national platform, as you mentioned. Had the one of the highlights for me was an opportunity to do a very personal interview with Dr. James Dobson. But I've also in my with my Dose of the Ghost program, when Sylvester Stallone came out with his last Rocky, I did an interview with his brother Frank Stallone. Let's see. I've also done some pretty heavy hitting interviews in the hip hop and holy hip hop community.
Whoa, that's pretty diverse. Well, what's been your most challenging guest on your broadcast?
I apologize. I don't remember the individual's name specifically, but they came on in a manner of pretending to be one thing, and during the course of our conversation, they were something entirely different.
Mm,
And they were just saying things that were just outright untrue and inaccurate.
oh my goodness.
And as a shepherd and as someone who believes strongly in protecting one's flock, as it were, I felt strongly the need to call the situation out and have a discourse about it. Which, of course, when one exposes someone who is being untruthful, they tend not to like that.
Yes, and was that live?
Yeah, it actually was. It was live, and it's one of the very few times I've had wonderful conversations on my Chosen Generation radio show with individuals that we were not in absolute 100% agreement, but that were very respectful.
Hmm.
And this particular conversation crossed those boundaries and crossed those lines, uh, coming in from his side, and I put a stop to it.
Wow, wow, that had to be interesting. As we're talking about your broadcast career, where did the name Chosen Generation come from? What inspired you to utilize that name for your national broadcast?
Well, chosen generation, of course, it's found in First Peter 2:9 and 10. You are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. So it's Genesis, I suppose, would be located there. But really, on the deeper level, it was really because of my deep regard and respect for George Barna, who also made a number of appearances on the program over the years, and we broke a lot of his new polls that he did. He was a incredibly talented and gifted pollster,
Yeah.
and so George had the term a biblical worldview,
Hmm.
and a biblical worldview was something that I valued greatly, because I believe that a biblical worldview values every individual and every person. It values life. It gives value, irrespective of any racial characteristic. In fact, my perspective from a biblical worldview is that there is no race. There's one race, and it's mankind.
Yeah.
That's it.
Human race. Yeah.
Yes, and so then the question becomes, who gives mankind their greatest degree of value? And I believe Scripture speaks to that when He says, "You are fearfully and wonderfully made," and that your soul. And that's your mind, will, and emotions, that your soul. So it is written into your soulish DNA that you have great value, because our Creator, God Almighty, wrote that in. And I find that to be very comforting. I find that to be very encouraging. I find that for someone who uh, may have been told something of the alternative, or grown up in a society or a culture that led them to believe that they were less than, to know that there is one whose opinion cannot be altered by man, cannot be changed by any crowd input, is not up for a vote, but has decided that you have great value. And then, I mean, we can go into, how that value is been tarnished, and how that value is restored.
Wow. Well, I guess that would lead then to, have you ever done anything outside of ministry and broadcast? And it's kind of similar to the first question. When did you first sense the calling of God, or the calling, as it were, on your life for ministry on media platforms? So, have you ever done anything outside of Christian media, in the secular realm, in broadcasting? And when did you get the call to transition into ministry, utilizing the platforms that you had available to you?
Well, the answer to the first question, did I ever do anything outside of ministry, and really it was outside of ministry and outside of broadcasting, and the answer to that is yes. I owned and managed restaurants in Florida, and managed restaurants in Texas and in California. And then I moved into the collections business, and subrogation in particular, working with credit card companies, car rental companies, and insurance companies on both a domestic and an international basis, and grew my company significantly, until really what wiped us out was 9/11. The 9/11, at that time, many might remember. Uh, Obviously, there was a massive loss of life, but also a tremendous loss to our nation, and in the attack that was done to our country. But in addition to that, the airlines are the only ones in the travel industry that got any kind of a bailout. And so my car rental clients all ended up, well, all but one ended up going through bankruptcies, and so their bankruptcies impacted my placements. and I lost over 60% of my business inside of 120 days as far as placements were concerned. And things just really escalated. In addition to that, I was involved in three different projects at the time, and I had about $210,000 in cash outlays in those three projects. One of them was with GE's reinsurance division. I'd put about $70,000 into a project, getting an office set up and personnel and infrastructure and so on. And when 9/11 hit, they took a $2 billion hit on those towers. And so they had to pull their business. And when they did, that was quite devastating. I had someone who was involved in a lot of fraud that I had hired them to work in my private investigation division, and they turned out to be rather than being someone who was trying to rehabilitate, they were continuing on in their fraud. A side note, interestingly, one of their friends was the uncle of Cole Hauser. Cole Hauser, who of course today is famous for the character Rip on Yellowstone. And then the final one was something having to do with the subrogation industry. And so, at any rate, all of that combined to my having to lay off 65 employees, and that really began some of my journey that helped to save my life in 2017 because my health failed as a result, I'm sure, of a lot of the stress. I ended up getting pericarditis, which is swelling around the lining of the heart. That then turned into I had to have umbilical hernia surgery. Then I had to have gallbladder surgery that turned into a liver infection. That led to shingles. Then, after I had the shingles, I ended up with pneumonia, and then that turned into pleurisy. And so, within a period of about 6 to 8 months, my entire endocrine system collapsed. My pituitary gland and my adrenal gland stopped functioning.
And well, I'm talking to you, not a ghost, as far as I know. Yeah, that sounds like that should be fatal.
Well, I was given 3 to 6 months to live, Pastor Carl. They gave me 3 to 6 months to live. I went to 6 different internists and specialists and endocrinologists, and they said, we're so sorry. The last group of nurses that I saw that were in the office where the last doctor was that I saw were just crying as I left because he said, you've got about 3 to 6 months. I was gray and yellow and whitish, kind of, but not white man whitish, like chalky white,
Yeah.
and bloated, and really sent home to die. And so
How did your
as I
family
was
process that experience? I mean, your wife and your kids?
well, the business had finally closed. I had to shut the business down. I had about $2.5 million in life insurance. Not 2 years before 9/11 and all of this happened. My net worth was about $5 million, and I went from a net worth of 5 million to a net worth of zero, which was pretty devastating economically. But then to have your health turned upside down, and I'll tell you, and to folks that are out there that might be dealing with very dark moments and dark situations, I get it. I really, really do get it. I could see people smile. I could see people laugh. I could see people trying to be kind, but none of those feelings or emotions touched me. I couldn't get there. I was completely and totally numbed. Both.
Would you say you were maybe battling depression in that time?
Oh, I would say that there's no question that I was battling depression, but really, I was battling depression, and I was battling just absolutely being shut down. on every level. And I really reached a place of just, saying to the Lord, I wasn't upset, I wasn't mad, I wasn't any of those things. I was just at the place of saying, Lord, if I'm done, if you have said it's over and you're calling me home, uh, there's $2.5 million in life insurance. And if I was not suicidal in that respect, I was just prepared that if God said to, the next breath is your last, I was ready in that respect, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um
You're good with being done with it
yeah,
all.
yeah. And so as a result of the Dose of the Ghost radio show, which was a holy hip hop radio show with a 3 to 5 minute message on each side of the other of the half hour, that had been syndicated and through Zio radio networks out of Colorado. And as a result of that, I had been invited and was engaging as a co host on a Christian television program called The 11th Hour, which aired out of Sacramento, California. It was recorded in Modesto, California. It was actually recorded in a studio that had been owned by Chester Smith, who performed with Merle Haggard. And so Chester, when he sold the studio to Telemundo, told them that as a part of the sale, you will maintain studio space for the 11th hour television program for so long as you have it and for so long as they continue to produce a program. And so as I was lying on my bed dying in my bedroom, I heard the Holy Spirit, and I know for some that may be difficult to understand, but it was my experience, and it was I needed to go and see Sandy Swanson, the executive producer of the show, and so I got up to do that. And as I'm trying to get up, my wife, who we had 4 children at the time, 2 in preschool and 2 in school, and she said, "Honey, where are you going?" And I said, "Well, I've got to go over to the studio, to the TV studio." And she said, "How are you even going to get there? You can't even drive."
Oh
And
my
I said, I don't know, but I'm going. And so I went over there, met with Sandy. She referred me to a naturopath, and I started on naturopathic medicine, including bovine stem cell intervention, including just a variety of things, detoxes, and so on. Got involved in deliverance ministry through that I'm still involved with today, and didn't get healed, but what I did get is I got to a place where I turned the clock on not dying,
Mm.
and I stayed alive.
You gain purpose even in your sickness.
Well, I did, because one of the messages that I felt like I was given at that time was not just the message of the cross, but really more the message of the Garden of Gethsemane, which is where Jesus faced his most significant battle, I believe, to the point that he was had blood pouring out of him, and he said, if this cup can pass, let it pass, but not my will, but thy will be done.
It sounds like you got your answer.
Well, and so I really entered into that place. And again, for those today that may be going through a really difficult and challenging and dark time, I
Mhm.
just encourage you to know that Jesus gets it. He really, really gets it, and he'll sit with you in that Garden of Gethsemane for as long as it takes for you to be ready to be able to walk out, and he'll walk it out with you.
Well,
And so we did. I started on a protocol that I took 4 times a day to try to help support my adrenals and my pituitary gland. I had multiple tests that were done when I got here to Texas. One of them was with a chiropractor who looked at my meridian time clock of where my body was. He was going to try to help me. And he looked at it and he said, when I came back to him, and interestingly, his parents were the ones who were murdered at the Lubies by a gunman. There was a very famous case here in Texas because it led to Texas passing legislation that allows people to be able to carry to protect themselves against another incident like that ever happening again.
Wow.
But anyway, Dr. Gracia came back with the results, and he said, in 35 years, I have never, ever before seen someone in your condition. He said, honestly, I don't know how you're standing in front of me. I don't know how you're here in my office. I don't know how you're not lying in bed somewhere, because the way this works is that the big hand's supposed to be on the 12 and the little hand on the 3. Your hands are inverted. Your little hand is 2 minutes to the 12, and your big hand is 2 minutes to the 3. And once they've fully inverted, you're dead.
Wow.
So, flash forward to 2017. I'm doing now this Chosen Generation radio program. My daughter Jackie, one of my daughters, is driving for me on that particular day. She's on her learner's permit, and a gentleman in a truck pulls across the highway in front of us and stops. He was an older man who was confused. He'd just come out of the doctor's office, and pulled across and stopped in front of us. And so there was nowhere to go. There was an 18-wheeler coming up. It was a 2-lane road. 18-wheeler coming up over the other side, over this little embankment. And so she turned the wheel so as not to T-bone him. She hit the passenger driver's door with such force that it actually knocked the cab off the frame by 1.5 feet. We impacted at 55 miles per hour. Everything slowed down in the cab. I dove from the passenger seat to the driver's seat because I heard the Holy Spirit say, Jackie, and seatbelt. And I knew I had to get over to become her airbag and protector. And just as I was diving, tools out of the back of the truck came crashing through the windshield. And I was knocking down tools with my hands, and then ultimately blocking those tools from hitting her with the rest of my body.
Wow.
I broke
After
both.
your initial health incident, you got in a horrific automobile accident.
Yes, after 13 years of just surviving, which I did. I was really just surviving day to day. I ended up in intensive care at University Hospital in San Antonio, Texas, on life support, with a tube in my nose and a tube in my mouth, on a breathing machine and other apparatuses keeping me alive for 6 weeks. And I had 17 surgeries over the course of 5 days. I died 3 more times. I had died at the scene of the accident, and I ended up as going through. I degloved my face. I broke my left orbital.
That means your skin was pretty much removed from the muscle connection of the bone.
Yes, my skin and muscle and everything on my face and the top of my head, all the way back behind my ears. I was fully disengaged from the skull.
Holy moly.
I broke the base of my skull on both sides. I broke my neck at C3, front and back. I broke my back in 3 places between T5 and T1. I then broke both hands and both wrists. I broke my right rib cage. I broke my pelvis, my hip, my femur, my tibia, and my fibula on my left leg, and had to have rods put in and screws to reattach and fix my hip, and a rod in my femur and a rod in my tibia on my left leg. And they said, Mr. Young, that's your good leg. And that's because I crushed the bottom of my right knee so severely there wasn't enough knee left to do a knee replacement. I crushed and destroyed the top of the tibia, which required them to put a plate attached to the side of the tibia, and then long screws across the top of the tibia in order to put the tibia back together. And that still wasn't enough. They had to use bone glue. I severed all the nerves below my right knee, and I severed the main artery. And if I hadn't crushed that main artery, I would have bled out on scene.
Wow. So you're really a miracle.
Yes, sir. And then on top of that, because of the severity of the damage to my right leg, and the lower right leg, I had what they called compartmental strokes that were going on. So they had to open up my right leg, and they had to do what's called a fasciotomy. And mine was extreme. So they actually did a double fasciotomy, meaning they cut open both the inside and the outside of my lower leg in order to release the pressure so that I didn't die of a compartmental stroke.
Wow.
Now, one of the things that I did during that time was spiritual warfare, and my family and I prayed against the spirit of death. And I really believe that, and the prayers of thousands, because at the time my radio program had been syndicated, and I was on about 100 stations across the country.
Oh, wow. So you had your following at that point.
Yes, yes, I sure did. And we did video like Rush.
Wow.
So it streamed online, plus the fact that I had all this audience that was listening across the country, and I'm very grateful for that. And that 2 years later turned into an opportunity, or an invitation, I should say, to be sharing this testimony in the remotest parts of India.
So pretty much every time you had a challenge, that challenge led you into another level of ministering and sharing your testimony. It sounds like.
It really, honestly, it did. With each challenge, and with each, what would appear to be setbacks, and I'm not suggesting that they weren't challenging and weren't setbacks, but with each one of those came an opportunity to be able to um, present and have an impact. And through all of this, it should be noted too that I was learning about faith.
Yeah.
I was learning about faith that persevered. I remember very distinctly one time sharing a sermon about that. At that point, my wife and I had been married 11 years, and we'd had to move 16 times
Wow.
across 3 states and 6 cities, all because of different employment situations. That was before I started my own company, started my own business.
And yet you're still here, and yet you're still broadcasting. So all that led to, I guess, your current iteration of Chosen Generation, the ministry and broadcast, your international ministry. Is that correct?
It really has. It has led to us now having, over the course of the last 6 years, this impact. We've planted 2,200 churches. We've put in 65 freshwater wells. We've established 5 sewing schools for widows and 6 literacy schools. We do a feeding program every month where we feed about 50 to 60 widows and their children.
And where
Um,
is this at?
all of this is in the most northern part of India.
Oh wow! So it is the international ministry that you're speaking of.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is. It is in the most northern part and in the poorest of the poor communities throughout Punjab, India, which is a very Punjab, Jammu, and Kashmir throughout those parts of the world.
Wow. So if you were to give advice to, and this is general because everybody's circumstance is different. As a matter of fact, we've kind of come to know each other and sharing our individual testimonies because we both had traumatic situations physically. But to give suggestion to anyone that's going through in their life that would be practical, whether they have faith or not, because something you mentioned that stuck with me is even in your India ministry, a lot of the people that you're talking to aren't necessarily Christians or of faith, but your testimony is a blessing to them anyhow.
Well, absolutely, because I think what the message is, and what it says is that we are having an opportunity to be able to make a difference in someone's life,
Yes.
and to give them hope. One of the greatest challenges for those in India is they feel hopeless.
Mm,
They feel as though there is no hope, and unfortunately they have a caste system that is very foreign to us here in the Western world. But the caste system basically says that if you're born in the lower caste, number one, you're born there because it's a punishment by God. God is punishing you. Number two, it says that you are placed in that position because you are you're gosh you're basically uh without purpose in life. And so because you are told that you are without this purpose, and that every bad thing that happens to you as some form of punishment, imagine how hopeless you might be or might feel if that was your lot in life.
yeah. I'd say it's probably people here, even in the States, that may be able to relate to that description, um, feeling hopeless. And even for our listeners today who may be feeling like giving up, whether due to health or personal or spiritual battles, what final words of hope would you share with them?
I would hope that my story and what has gone on in my life, number one, um I never minimize. Romans tells us we weep with those that weep and we rejoice with those that rejoice. So I don't minimize someone else's challenges or someone else's issues that they're going through. But what I do want them to know is that I absolutely firmly believe and am a living testimony that there is hope.
And that there is. How can people connect with you and your ministry?
Yeah, the best way to connect with us is really through the website, chosengenerationradio.com. You can email me through that as well.
Awesome. 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 Normally, I would ask because you already answered this question. What do you think your legacy is, and what would you like for it to be? But I'd say it's one of endurance, not giving up, keeping on, pressing on, no matter what, and seeing the challenges as just that. They're just simply challenges. You're going to get to tomorrow until God says you're no more, and that's the blessing of life. As you said, we take on our brother and our sisters' burdens and never discount how they feel or what they're going through, but encourage, continue to encourage. And I'd say to Pastor Greg, continue to be encouraged. We thank God for you joining us for the Voices of Legacy and sharing the testimony of your life. And who knows, hopefully the next great thing doesn't come with a great tragedy. We pray at this point, but we're so thankful for you sharing your story.
Thank you, Pastor Carl. Thank you for letting me be a part of Voices of Legacy. And God bless everyone that is listening to our program. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Voices of Legacy. This is your friend, Pastor Carl Mitchell III, your host of this program. We want you to go to wgte.org/legacy to like, share, subscribe, and hear all of our past podcasts and our future podcasts. Be a friend and join with us in the Voices of Legacy, where you're writing your own legacy every day that you live. Have a blessed day.
WGTE. Voices around us.